researcher would say, so what kind of samurai, what rank is he, what is he wearing, what hairstyle is he, or what kind of life has he lived, like all of that. Does he have a sword, or does he not have a sword, or is he shaved, does he shave his head, or does he, is his hairstyle a little bit different? You know, all that kind of things were really, really carefully considered and thought out. It was a challenge to get people who could actually shave their heads, and we had this one person who was an extra who was asked to shave his head, and you know, he would have a job meeting the next day. But you know, he said, well, it's a sports film, I'm going to do it. And he did it, actually. And so he shaved his head, but then it turns out that it rained on the day of shooting, so he had to wear a hat to cover, you know, his head. So all that shaving, you know, was kind of, it's a very sad story, it's a tragedy, but, you know, those kind of things did happen. But my point is, there were a lot of people who were involved and made sure that, you know, it was very accurately done. Of course, if you look into it really, really closely, you might find some things that aren't necessarily authentic, but it doesn't pull you out of the story. So in terms of that, I think it worked out pretty well. And my role on that was basically, for example, when the two researchers were interacting, I would have to translate between them. So it would be endless email chains or, you know, conversations, lots of translation work definitely. But another thing I did was I was a production assistant in the assistant director team. So what that means is basically I was helping in terms of running the set, making sure that the logistics of the set run smoothly. For example, if we were to shoot scene A, B, and C, we make sure that those scenes are shot correctly. We make sure that we have enough material to work on, and make sure that the actors are ready, the set is ready, everything's ready, and you know, just wrangling all the logistics was kind of part of my work. So that was kind of what I did with the film. Okay,
Connie, quite simple, and rather stupid question. I haven't read the book yet. I haven't seen the film yet. So my question is, what was the target? I mean, the audience. When you target the audience, who will be watching the film? I mean, not in terms of culture or nationality or that. My question is about the age. The reason that I'm asking this is well, I haven't seen the film yet. I'm not good at torture scenes or cruel scenes or brutal scenes. And I know that the film has something quite a bit of those plot, which can't be swapped out because that was a reality to it. But again, when you make those films that includes all the brutal and ugly side of human beings, and again, when you think about, because you have to sell the film, you have to make profit, and how do you combine all those different elements again, like Aussies? You want to have the people know that these are the things that really happen, and regardless of generation, but then you think about, okay, is this something you might want to have a young child to see it, even though it's their parents or whatever. But then again, you want to be educational, and at some point you want to tell the people, regardless of generation, that this is actually what happened in human history. And there's someone like me, like I know the importance that I should, and maybe yes, especially as a Japanese, I should see this film, but simply I'm just not really prepared yet. I saw the NHK film that was showing part of the film and interviews to the directors and all that, and so I know bits and pieces there are, yes, really heavy scenes. That's, you know, what was the thought going on in the production curve, like, you know, who are the audience, who are the target?
Yes, so the audience of the film, well, it's definitely not a film for 5-year-old kids, definitely not. I think it definitely skews more to an adult audience, so I'd say 15, but maybe some people would say 18, depending on their judgment. The important thing, I think, about this film is that it probably would not have been made if it wasn't for Martin Scorsese. Even for him, it took him almost 30 years to make this film. The reason being, making a movie costs a lot of money, and people who invest want their money back, and they base things off of what's the story, or what's the actors, or what's the theme. It's definitely a significant piece of art, but it's also very expensive as well. So finding that right balance of saying, okay, if we can make it within this budget, then maybe we can actually make it. So it was a struggle for him as well, like finding the right people to invest, the right actors, the right production environment was a challenge in and of itself. So the only reason that it happened was he really wanted to make it, and he held on it for 28 years, which is very, very dedicated, I would say, like, to release. So in terms of making a film, like all these financial considerations have to be made, but in his case, he had made enough films before and had been acclaimed and had made enough good movies that he could get that ultimately made. But even that for him was a big struggle. So I think the existence of this film itself is, in a way, a miracle, and working on it and seeing it actually come to life was a miracle as well. There were a lot of challenges, even during production and before production and after production. It was very hectic, but I think ultimately it was made, so that's what matters in this case.
This is Martin Scorsese's third Christian movie he made. Most people don't regard Mean Streets as a Christian movie, but it is very strongly Roman Catholic. And its themes, of course, the most famous is the Passion of Christ by Mel Gibson. The Last Temptation of Christ he made in the late 80s, which was very controversial. This movie is very Christian, and also, I suppose it could be called Roman Catholic. Was this after the Reformation or not, Pastor? After the Reformation, okay, so it was very Roman Catholic. You said that Martin Scorsese was a very devout Christian. It's my understanding, I've seen it written several times, that he's actually a lapsed Roman Catholic, and lapsed, not recently, lapsed for several decades. Almost all of his adulthood has been separated from the church. However, he has returned to Catholic themes, even in his non-Christian movies like Taxi Driver. You see Catholic themes, with Travis burning himself over the flames to purge his sins. And I was wondering if you had any insights to the Christian faith of Martin Scorsese and his motivations in making this film.
Yes, so I think, Martin Scorsese is a director who has a filmography of over 40 years, and he's known for many gangster type films or like big epics, historical epics, and also he's done Christian related movies as well. Although you can see even in the non-Christian related films, like you see Christian imagery, or like in the very root of it, you see symbolisms, or we can see that he has put a lot of thought into, like it reflects his thoughts and views on religion as well. In all the characters that he depicts, you can see some kind of like either fatal flaw or struggle between like what's right or wrong, or like the faith, like overall. It's definitely there, I think. I heard that he originally wanted to be a priest himself. Like he was studying in seminary before he decided to become a filmmaker. So Christianity was in his life and has been a major theme of his life throughout, like over the course of his life. And all the faith and also the doubts themselves, like that was also a big part of what he'd been thinking about, from what I've read. So I think having had that background and having read that novel, which also deals with the same issue of faith and doubt, and in the seeming absence of God not responding and being silent, I think that struck a strong chord within his personal background, like the way he's been brought up and he's lived his life has, has a lot of stuff in it in the novel as well. So I think in that sense, that was a very strong property for him. He read it in 1988, but that's what kept him going. So I think, and that was right after when they screened The Temptation of Christ. So like those timing and everything that collided together, I think, to make this movie. In terms of this.
We have two last questions. Our time is running out. Luke, there at the back. There's a mic.
The Inquisitor himself, he had a very distinct way of talking. Very strange sort of accent for a Japanese, etc. Was that done on purpose, or you, as you alluded to earlier on, he studied quite a lot for that role? And was that his way of depicting the person, or was this from Scorsese to make a point of this, to make him stand out in the movie as the Inquisitor?
Yes, the Inquisitor's role was definitely stands out from the rest in terms of the way he speaks, the way he moves, the way he behaves in front of the camera. That's just uniquely distinctive from the other actors, that's for sure. The thing about the director is he gives a lot of liberty to the actors. So the actors, they make their choices, and the director basically lets them do it as long as it's consistent with his vision. And in terms of Issei Ogata's performance, I know that he has prepared tremendously, and the whole way of him speaking in that kind of very, not crisp, but the opposite of crisp, basically, like this slimy type performance. That's what he thought was appropriate for the character. The character was Christian, and he apostatized, so he understands the psychology of what a Christian would think at that time. So with all that in mind, he created this character of understanding, but at the same time trying to get his agenda done. So I think all the personnel, all the representations were mainly his choice. He had a very spontaneous way of acting, which was just brilliant and amazing to see. Like when he shows up for the first time, we have him with his fan, with all the mosquitoes and all. He tries to wipe them away. All that kind of little details was planned by him, and the director loved it. So just we decided to put him. So that was very significantly his role.
Last question over here, Catherine.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I have my characters right. Rodriguez is the young priest who abandoned Christianity, right? There was the key scene where the priest that had also abandoned Christianity, what was his name?
Kanehira, yeah.
Yes, was there, and there seemed to be several points in his decision. One was they were saying that if you convert, if you leave, you will save more Christians, we won't kill these other people. So he's saving people. Then there's this man he idolized who has also abandoned the faith. And then there's just the struggles he had in his faith up to that, how rough it was. But I was wondering if you could comment on that turning point for him, because, and the influence that his hero had versus these other factors in that turning point in his life. And also, can you talk a little bit more about your decision of how much violence you put into this film? Because it is keeping a lot of people away, and it is necessary, but how much did you debate that internally? I was just interested.
Yeah, that's definitely a significant point. I think in terms of Rodriguez's character, he starts off this young, passionate, very energetic priest who he believes that it's not possible that his mentor has abandoned his faith. So that's why they go to Japan. And going there, he starts to witness what he absolutely believes is true, is costing ignite a sense of, definitely a sense of suffering, but also just a sense of doubt as well. Like what he's doing really worth the lives of other people's, or the sacrifice of the people who died for the sake of him, basically. And at that point, it goes to a point where he thinks whether that's worth it or not, what he absolutely thinks true, whether that's really the right thing to do, or whether it's correct to follow through on his faith that way, at the cost of so many people's lives, and seeing that actually done. Of course, that might be a technique used by the Japanese officials to make people apostatize. But in terms of that, to reveal the sense of brutality that was put onto Christians, and the sense of initiating the sense of doubt, or like the struggle within him, those rather graphic scenes were necessary. So I think the decision was made that they wanted to be as true to the story, the original story, as possible. And the original story has a lot of those depictions as well. And that was a necessity to convey the struggle and also just the actual brutality, and not just look away from it, but look into it, to face it, basically. So I think that was the intention of having all those scenes in it.
Well, I think we could still ask many, many questions. I have some in my mind still. I was wondering, why did he use the portrait of Christ from El Greco, for example? I was wondering about what is the best way to present Christianity in a hostile surrounding. Do you do it aggressively, which you mentioned? Do you do it servingly, or do you join the culture in such a way that Christ features in a different way? There are many, many questions challenging us. What touched me was that he dedicated this movie to the Japanese Christians and their pastors. And I thought the quotes, the blood of the martyrs are the seed of Christianity, came in through the movie. The priests are not so important. The people remain faithful. And someone put it very nicely that it was not missionaries that kept the faith alive in Japan. It was the Christians themselves. And I think that comes very close to your point. And I think Scorsese had a lot of respect for that fact, that there are still Christians today, even after the persecution, and that they remain faithful. Of course, the whole idea of God is gracious. God is gracious with the weak. God forgives is the central theme. If I remember correctly, Endo was a little bit disappointed with the title Silence, because he felt that God did speak. And God speaks from the Fumier. Trample on me, that's why I came. So that other people could live. So give up your own life so that others might live. That kind of hopefulness, of positiveness in the movie inspired me. And I think you brought something of that alive. Thank you so much for sharing some of the background. Of course, the implication is now that you cannot hide. You are now visible. And we would, if you don't mind, often make more use of you in terms of helping us understanding these difficult questions. And we wish you the very best in pursuing your career as a filmmaker. We know that Rio is very good as a choreographer, and we hope that between the two of you we might even have a movie with ballet and all kinds of things portraying our message in a unique way. Thank you very, very much once again. We really appreciate also the spontaneous way in which you spoke and draw us into the movie. That was great. Thank you very, very much for coming.